I've been emailing the government and Barack Obama since 2009, 2012, and I haven't gotten a response. I also had sent statements to the American Civil Liberties Union when I lived in Vegas, and they said they didn't get the statements. And to me, the U.S. mail doesn't make mistakes. Most of these crimes that were committed against me were committed against me when Bush was president, but I didn't know back then that I could email the government. I didn't get online until 2009, until I moved out here in Vegas. But back then, they threatened to kill me and ambush my family. So I thought of my mother, and at the time, I just did what they wanted me to do. Eventually, I was living in Bellingham, Massachusetts in 2006. I was working as a chimney sweep. I was riding my mountain bike on the sidewalk, and an 18-wheeler Grillick Farms truck drove up on the sidewalk and tried to run me over. To me, I think it was an attempted murder on my life. My handlebars kept me from going underneath this truck, and I was thrown like 15 feet, and I landed on the other sidewalk of the other street, and the back tires went over both sidewalks and missed me by like a foot or two. The Bellingham police showed up, and a police officer I showed them the gash in the truck. They were trying to say the back of the truck hit me, but I showed them the gash in the gash in the truck. In the front of the truck, that's my handlebar saved my life from me going underneath this truck. And this police officer, this Bellingham police officer, said that he didn't see the gash in the truck. Now I don't know what police academy he went to, but I had a run-in with the same police officer like 2 weeks prior at a bank there. The police, I refused to take the ambulance ride, and the police officer put my bike in his trunk, and I told him I wasn't going to ride in the back of a police cruiser, and he let me ride up front with him, which I later found out was illegal. But after what they did to me in Massachusetts, I wasn't going to ride in the back of no police cruiser. But eventually I went up to the Bellingham police and got the police report, and they blacked out the names of the drivers, which I thought was kind of odd. But eventually I got a lawyer in Norwell, and I did get $5,000 from that accident. But I lost my job. It left me homeless. I lived in Norwell, Massachusetts, 2004, 2005, and 2007. The people that lived there work in Hingham Court, which is located on the South Shore of Boston. Now, these people hazed me at that house, and they did certain things, and I told myself I wouldn't get into it until it became a federal case. I have sent the government and the FBI what they have done to me there. Eventually, I couldn't stay there anymore, and I moved to New York City in 2008. I moved to a shelter out there. It's located on Garrison Avenue in the Bronx. It's a rough neighborhood. I mean, there's good people there, and the people in the shelter helped me. I got a job at a garbage sanitation company out there, Action. I was still living at the shelter, and I used to, leave my car at the shelter, and I used to walk to work, and I used to walk past the monastery there in the Bronx, and there'd be prostitutes that stood outside the walls of this monastery, and the 18-wheelers used to pull off the highway and sit in front of the monastery. So obviously you know what was going on there. But this company that I was working for tried to hurt me on more than one occasion. Driver's name is Leroy. He tried to bounce me from a truck the night the Pope was in Manhattan, and if I didn't hang on to that truck, it would have been a crucifixion of my body parts all over the streets of Manhattan. Another worker, his name is Carlos. We had a set route in Queens. They put a canister in the street, and he tried to sideswipe me off the truck. The canister would have snapped me in half. I was lucky the back tires spun it away from the truck. The boss's name of that site, which is located in the Bronx, his name is Bill Callahan. I don't know whether he was involved or not, but he's the one that sent me out with those workers. And eventually they sent me out with a worker that was telling me that the company had connections with Mafia, which the company is located in New Jersey, but I worked out of the site in the Bronx. Now, I don't know whether the Bronx police were involved, but, the Massachusetts must have told them something, because I'm accusing Precinct 212 of sending people into the shelter, which the shelter's not there anymore, because I was just recently in New York City, but, like a year ago. And they used people to harass me, and they set me up and gave me a couple tickets. So I'm accusing them as well of being involved in, trying to hurt me or using people to harass me. But eventually they fired me from that company, and I ended up in Manhattan living on a shelter on 9th Street, and that shelter's not there anymore. But I used to walk to a to a church and stand in line and get free sandwiches in the morning. Now, eventually they asked me to work at this church, and I said, all right, I used to bag sandwiches and a juice box and hand them out to the homeless people. I was standing in line. I used to get 2 or 3 sandwiches, and then when I started working there, I could get 6, 7, 8 sandwiches, and I used to hand them out to people, and I walked back to the shelter and people at the shelter I was living at. But I was speaking to a preacher there, and he made a pointing like this to his head when I was speaking to him randomly, and to me, I took that as a threat, because when you make your hand like this, to me, that represents a gun. So, I stayed working there, and eventually I got my unemployment, and I got on a train and got out of New York City. I was still in New York. I was at a Radisson hotel, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And eventually, I moved back to the Bronx and got a place at 1917 Hennessy Place in the Bronx. And there were Latino people there, and they were hazing me there. Now, they had family in the military, and eventually they said they needed the room for a family member, so I left there. I was only there for like 2 months. And, I left New York City, and I went back to Boston. And, eventually I moved out here. I was homeless on the streets in Boston for 3 or 4 months, and I moved out here to Vegas. Now, I've lived here in Vegas from 2009, 2012. I've lived in 5 different places here, and they have hazed and harassed me at these 5 places. I've lived at Sigel Suites. I lived at the Sun Lake Meadows. I lived at the 3 Crowns. I lived on Desert Inn Road, and I live now at Cactus Springs. And, the tactics that these people have used are brutal, and them hazing me. And obviously I think it has to do with the, Massachusetts and, possibly some things in New York. And, I've recently contacted the FBI and emailed them that I was in fear for my life. Now, it's possibly that my place is bugged that I'm living at. And if it was, it'd be illegal and be a 5 years federal prison sentence. And, to me, there's an attempted murder involved in this conspiracy against me. So a conspiracy with attempted murder is a 20-year federal prison sentence. And as far as I know, a conspiracy against another human being is an open case as long as I'm still alive. These charges that they've had against me from Massachusetts, breaking the restraining order, home invasion, that's a 20-year sentence. They had a bomb threat hijack of a police station, which to me I think is a 20-year sentence. Threats to commit a crime, assault and battery. I have this record now that I have to live with. So to me, I've emailed the FBI over these years, and now these police have these people have and the police have a record with the FBI and the government. Now, I've tried to move on with my life. I made solid efforts. I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, and I can't make any more solid efforts to move on with my life. I took certain places into consideration that were involved, and I just can't do it anymore. I've been on the streets of Boston, New York City, LA, Phoenix, and Vegas for the last 5, 6 years of my life, trying to get back to a solid routine. And to me, I just take myself into consideration now. The FBI wanted me to contact these local police for help, like I said before, and I told the FBI how can I contact them. Eventually, I did contact them, and I spoke to a Lieutenant McGrath there on many occasions and left him numerous messages, and he said he wouldn't help me. On these police reports, the Norfolk police were outside the Rentham house. They had Norfolk cruisers out there. Police officer, his name is Steve Plimpton. He was a substitute teacher at my high school, King Philip Regional High School, and he was my baseball coach freshman year. Now, this guy used to yell at me for no reason. He took a personal disliking to me for whatever reason, I don't know, but I stopped playing baseball because of that guy. There's also a police officer named Jason Richardson. I went to high school with him. I played hockey with him, but he played soccer with Denny O'Brien, which was the guy that set me up in 2001. It was an Officer Barrett. Now, he tried to give me a drink of water, but after what the North Attleboro police did to me, I didn't trust these police, and he said he would take a sip out of the drink before he gave it to me, but the rest of what they said on that police report's not true. They lied on that police report. There was also a police officer named Steve Heron. Now, he went to my high school and he played hockey on the same team that I played on. And, some of these guys and the things that they've done when it comes to the past of their lives and drugs and things like that, I know things about them as well. I also spoke to a Walpole police officer, Officer Carmichael. I think he's a lieutenant or a captain there. And I told him some of the things that, possibly that some of his officers were involved with Jim Sullivan and Blake Roberts and that company Mass Movement setting me up. And I told him some of the things the North Attleboro police did to me, and he was kind of shocked at some of the things that they had done to me. I don't represent the law, but, what they've done to me in the Constitution, that applies to me, and I haven't gotten justice for what was done to me. My grandfather is a retired Boston police officer. He was on the bomb squad, and he was on the Harbor Patrol in Boston. I think, some of these things that were involved, that they've been trying to hurt me and steal my freedom and protect their reputations. In 1997, I lived on a church monastery. I was a chief. He was a former police chief of Norfolk. I was friends with his sons. Now, there was a bachelor party on that monastery. There was alcohol, drugs, and lesbians. And in 2001, my girlfriend, Sonia Beth Chamberlain, at the time, worked at the Elementary Daycare Center, which is located on the same street. And I picked out a phony courtroom in Attleboro District Court. So these things involve, these people have been trying to protect their reputations, and they know that I know these things, and I'm not friends with them anymore. And one of those sons on there, I smoked weed with him and his wife, and I did coke with him on that monastery. So, there's certain things involved with those two counties that, these people have set me up into the law, and were selfish to protect their reputations. And, to me, I think they would have liked to get me on some of those charges, but, they wouldn't they wouldn't let me represent myself, those court systems, and, I've tried to move on. I've taken some of these places into consideration, and I only take myself into consideration now. So, this American flag right here, that Constitution applies to me, and I think I deserve justice for what was done to me.